The leaf springs on my Tacoma are unbearable. I can't stand the way they sound. So, I'm going to be working on it today in the shop. So my leaf springs are the Old Man Emu Dacker leaf springs for Tacoma, heavy duty. I bought them about half a year ago. I installed them in December, and since then I've only really gone off-roading twice. Once was the Arkansas trip, which we did do a lot of water crossings on that trip. And then last weekend, and so, wait, let me back up. So we did do a lot of water crossings on that trip. After that trip, the leaf springs were squeaking. I don't think as bad as right now. Here, take a listen. I don't think they're squeaking as bad as they sound right then and there, as in that video. I don't remember, to be honest, but they are super loud right now. I can't stand it. I feel embarrassed to drive the truck the way it is right now, especially going to work, going to the parking garage, and the squeaking is echoing. Anyway, it's bad. I don't know what I did wrong, if I did anything wrong. So what I'm going to be up to today is trying to, I guess, fix my squeaky leaf springs. So this is what I have, or this is what I got. So I got some greasable pins for the leaf springs. I'm going to be replacing the bolts that I have with greasable pins. And then also, since the first time around, I only replaced the bushings that went on the leaf spring. I didn't replace the bushings that go on the shackle in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that as well. I didn't get greasable pins for this. Probably another mistake. I probably should have. At the time, I was just thinking I needed one for each, spring bolt. And then now this is going to be another point of, well, it's another thing that I just remembered. So we're not too sure. I'm not too sure exactly where the squeaking is coming from. Jack is saying that it's coming from the bushings or the pin. And so my theory is this pin goes in the bushing, but the surface between the bushing and, not the pin, but the sleeve or the spacer goes in the bushing. I don't think the spacer rubbing on the bushing is causing any squeaking, because this is like a plastic, so I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is, or could be, the bolt or pin that's now starting to see some rust. This surface is rubbing against the ID of the spacer, and that's what's creating the squeaking. I guess we think that's it. That's the reason I got the greasable pins, so we can be able to lubricate that surface. And if it's the springs themselves, I don't know what to do. I heard you can power wash them, spray them, put this, what was it, some sort of suspension grease, take them all apart and grease everything, dip them in grease. And also add some sleeves. You can add some, I guess, some nylon or plastic sleeves between the springs. I mean, I don't think I should have to do that with new leaf springs. Or if they do, they should come properly. I don't know. Anyways, I'm just going on here. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can fix these squeaky leaf springs today.
Oh, that's perfect, actually.
So basically, we're having to take off everything again. Try not to take off the U-bolts, because you're not really supposed to use those twice. We're able to get the shackles off, and we're having trouble getting this spacer and bushing off. And I think they're like press fit in there. So we're going to have to use a press or figure out another way to get these out.
Yeah.
So we got the old bushings out that were pressed in there. Now the ones I got, they should be the right ones, but they don't just slip in like they did on the leaf spring. So we're gonna go ahead and press these in as well, because I have no other choice right now. So after a lot of failure, which I'll go over in a little bit, we're finally getting back to assembling the truck. Got everything back together. Just need to put the tires on. Jack is greasing up the greasable pins that were a fail /
It's empty,
win.
of course.
We did have to do some modifications, and the bushings that I bought were a total fail. Um, we looked up online again, and they were the right part supposedly, but they just were not fitting into the shackle. We had to like press fit them in, and then the bushing got, like, the idea of the bushing got smaller because it was compressed so much, and then we couldn't get the spacer in. It wasn't working, so we ended up reusing, which were fine. I just wanted all the bushings to be the same. Ended up reusing the stock bushings for the shackle, and it's a little bit late right now, so I'll go over everything a little bit later and what we did, what failed, what worked, and yeah. So we got everything back on, and we're gonna see how much of a failure this was or not. So we're gonna do a little test to see how loud it is now. We haven't greased the bolts. We'll grease them, do another test, and then we'll come back later, maybe in a few days after I've driven it, and see if it's any quieter. So let's give it a little test.
Rob's the official squeak test. Oh yeah, that is awful. That's a 7 out of 10 right there.
Sounds just as bad as before. So we're gonna go ahead and grease the pins and try it again and see if it's a failure or not. All right, ready for the test after the pins have been greased?
Post grease.
I really don't have high hopes, but here we go.
Oh wow, that's easily as bad or worse.
Yeah, that's pretty disappointing. It has to be the leaf springs between each leaf pack. I mean, what else could it be now?
Maybe the grease will get in there as you drive in. I don't know.
And I've actually already sprayed the leaf springs with some Teflon lubricant that I had, just as a quick resolution.
Unreal.
Temporary, to see if that did anything, but I don't know, maybe it is still the pins. Maybe we just need to drive it around a little bit. We'll see what happens. Keep you updated.
Living that squeak life.
So here's what we did and didn't do. What we did do was replace this pin or this bolt with a greasable bolt, and I was trying to replace these bushings, but like I said, they just were not fitting in. They were not the right size. We did press fit them in, but it just didn't look right. It was not happening. So we reused the existing bushings for this side, and what we did have to do for this, so we did have to remove the shackle completely, or push it forward, because from factory this bolt comes in from this side, and you're not going to be able to remove it because of the shackle mount. So you have to push this all the way forward to get past the mount, or completely remove it. And in order to use the greasable pin, which it has the I believe it's a Zerk fitting, it's on this end, you can't put it from this side, because then you won't be able to grease the pin unless you drill a hole or cut a hole in the shackle mount. So what we did is we trimmed the bolt so it's flush with the nut, and that way it wouldn't interfere with the shackle mount, and so that way you can put the pin from this side and be able to grease it. So that's what we did. You can see my leaf springs are super clean because I went ahead and pressure washed them very well, but let me show you real quick. They are still squeaky. So an update on the Tacoma leaf springs was a complete fail. We replaced the pins, and that did not help at all. I mean, now I have greasable pins, but that's all pretty much that's pretty much it for that. It didn't help with the squeaking. I actually went and power washed the leaf springs. I think I've seen that as a recommendation. I did that, and the day I power washed them, they were nice and quiet because they're all wet and lubricated. The second day they got a little bit louder, and then the third day, once they're like completely dry again, it was back to normal. So I guess I'm gonna try some, I think, what's the name of it, energy suspension grease, something like that. this really tacky, thick grease. Somebody has, what I read online is that they've like jacked up the truck and then pried the springs apart a little bit and then try to like, you know, put that grease between the leaf springs as good as possible and try to get it in between everything. So I'm gonna try that and see if that helps. But if not, I guess I'll just have to live with the squeaky leaf springs on the Tacoma.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.